Grounded and sober. In 1 Samuel 11, the Israelites were not just facing a military crisis on a shadowy battlefield, they were confronting a deep-seated existential fear that had been building for a generation. For 2 decades, the nation had avoided major conflict. They were a people out of practice, living in the long shadow of their last catastrophic encounter. This chart captures the scale of that previous disaster. During the battle against the Philistines, 34,000 men were killed, and their most sacred symbol, the Ark of the Covenant, was captured. 20 years without a victory had done more than deplete their army. It had eroded their collective confidence. They had become a nation that expected to lose. This vulnerability is what Nahash the Ammonite exploited when he brought his forces against the city of Jabesh. It was a sudden siege against a town with no means of defense. Nahash didn't just want the territory. He demanded that every man have his right eye gouged out.
He wanted to turn the Telthuration into a permanent, living monument to Israel's weakness. The response from the elders of Jabesh reveals the depth of their despair. Instead of preparing for a desperate stand, they immediately offered to serve Nahash if he would only make a treaty with them. The memory of their past failures had effectively blinded them before Nahash ever could. They saw surrender as the only realistic option because they no longer accounted for the possibility of intervention. The news eventually reached the town of Gibeah. As Saul heard the report, the text describes the Spirit of God coming upon him, triggering a massive wave of anger. Saul stood a full head taller than his peers, but in this moment it was his resolve rather than his height that set him apart. While the nation wept, Saul prepared for war. To snap the people out of their stupor, Saul used a brutal, unmistakable visual. He took 2 oxen, slaughtered them, and cut them into pieces. He sent those pieces to every corner of the map with a message. Anyone who did not follow him and the prophet Samuel into battle would see their own livestock meet the same fate. This map shows the result of that ultimatum. The text notes that God placed a specific dread over the people. It wasn't a gentle nudge, it was a sudden, multiplying force that moved the nation to act as a single unit. When a culture has spent 20 years learning how to give up, God utilized a shock to the system. He used a visceral, terrifying moment to override their habit of surrender. The mobilization was massive. Within a day, 330,000 men gathered, ready to march on the Ammonite camp. This chart visualizes the coalition. Saul successfully drew 300,000 men from the northern tribes of Israel and 30,000 from Judah, uniting the entire region for the first time in years. Saul led this army on a stealthy, rapid march through the darkness. They covered the distance under the cover of night, reaching the enemy lines before the sun was fully up. The morning ambush was absolute. The Ammonite camp was so thoroughly scattered that the biblical account notes no 2 soldiers were left together by noon. In less than 24 hours, the military stagnation of the last 2 decades was gone, replaced by a total and decisive victory. The contrast is stark. The day started with the Israelites weeping and negotiating the terms of their own mutilation, and ended with those same men standing over a defeated enemy. This victory served as the final confirmation of Saul's leadership. He had not just won a battle, he had proven he could mobilize and lead a fractured people under pressure. What is striking here is the timing. The rescue of Jabesh was set in motion while the people were still resigned to their defeat. The momentum shifted because of a divine initiative that caught the people by surprise. It shows that God's intent to deliver his people isn't waiting for a perfect environment or a surge in national morale. He can execute a promise even when the recipients are at their lowest point of readiness. Most of us still operate like the elders of Jabesh. We look at our bank accounts, our past failures, or our current energy levels and conclude that progress is impossible. We treat our environment as the final word on our potential. But the pattern in 1 Samuel suggests a different approach. When we stop weighing the obstacles and simply respond to the command, the resources we need often appear as we move. The provision follows the obedience. God communicates with those who are looking for a way forward. By following his word closely and moving quickly, we can see long-standing patterns of stagnation broken in a single moment.